Right, here we go. The Chateau. Now, yesterday I added some texture using powdered grout. Now it's a little bit too coarse for my liking, having given it an undercoat of paint. So what I'm doing is using a fine emery board. And I'm just going to take it down and smooth it down a little bit. Still retaining the texture, but making it a little less bumpy and, of course, coarse. I'll just try and adjust a little bit. Cheers, Anfield. How are you doing? It's not an easy one to get the full thing in camera. It's 1/50th scale, so it's bigger than I normally work in. You've gone. But yeah, it's quite a big building as it is. So I just spend a little time getting this to look right. This isn't the final colour. I'm going to colour it with some sandstone or middlestone airbrush paint. It'll change altogether then. Because this is, what's it built out of? Well, the majority of it is MDF. I'll just tilt it forward a little bit. You can see the internal shell. It's 2 and 4 millimeter MDF. The window detailing is a combination of 0.3, 0.6 and 0.9 laser board, which I have layered together to create that sort of stepped effect. And then the texture is created with powdered grout sprinkled directly onto PVA. So I've painted the walls with PVA glue or wood glue and then sprinkled powdered grout straight over the top of it. It's given me a nice texture, but it's a little bit too coarse in places. So now it's all fully set and hardened. I'm just going over with a very fine emery board just to smooth it out a little. It's a 500-year-old building, and it's not been maintained to the best standards over the years. And because of its location in the south of France, it's subject to a lot of weathering, and well, sandstone does tend to deteriorate after a number of years. So in places, both the stone in the surround details and the actual render has started coming away, but they do have plans to restore the building. So I've been requested to make it look a little less shabby than it currently is. So as a result, I'm making all the stonework as perfect as I can, and as lovely as it would be to recreate all the little sort of weathering and aging details of the plasterwork, i.e. all the bits like starting to fall off, etc. I'm just going to make it as if it's been freshly, well, make it as if it's been freshly rendered, but with a certain amount of realistic weathering. So it will look aged, but it won't be falling off. Does that make sense? Now I've just cut out a little bit of this emery board to give me a little sort of detail pad. It's actually a lot easier using something like this than a little stick of sandpaper. The reason why it's all sparkly is because this is the only bit of can't think of my words. It was the only nail file I could find at the shop. I'm just making another bit. as it starts to sort of clog up, you just have to cut down and make a new bit. It's not that easy to cut actually with a scalpel. So excuse me making the table wobble because it's trying to slice through this emery board. There we go, it's a bit better. Slightly fresher now. There's a lot of painstaking detail gone into making the stone surround pieces. It's taken a long time to get to this stage so far. There's still a heck of a lot to do, but what I want to try and do is do it in stages. So I'll get this ready to paint, give it a colour of stone, so I don't have to do any more spraying, and then I'm going to put the windows in. Once I've got the windows in, I can weather it up using brushes. But whilst I'm going to be using an airbrush or aerosol paints, I don't want the window frames anywhere near the building. Hey Georgia, thank you for joining. Are you having a nice weekend so far? It's half term, isn't it? Is it half term where you are? I know it is for me. Well, I'm not on half term, but I'm going to have a couple of days off next week. I don't know how much you saw last night, but this has now had an undercoat of primer, and now it's all hardened off. I'm just sanding it back. Tilt down a bit. So you could use this grout technique to create a much more sort of coarse pebble dash kind of, or heavily textured rendered surface, but this has a mixture of both coarse and fine render. And on this particular elevation, it's fairly smooth, but I do want the element of texture. I mean, I could have just used bare MDF, but I always prefer working it up. And of course, it's going to give the surface a lot more protection as well. It's got a layer of sort of hard grout over the top of it. So it's almost like I've actually rendered the surface for real, but in mini. It might look like a bit of a waste of time having painted it with primer, but at least it's given a sense of uniformity to the whole finish. going to take a little while to do. I'm going to go around and do the front face as well. That's a similar sort of treatment. That's a bit more tricky to get to because the stonework's a little bit more. The ornate stonework around the windows is a little bit more ornate. I'm looking forward to getting a coverage of stone coloured paint over the top of it to see what it's finally going to look like. I've been looking at bare surface for so long. It's nice to start tying it all together, but at the same time I've still got an awful lot of model to make. You know, there's more of it than just this little section here. I say little section, it's quite a substantial build, but there is more of it. This is just the main sort of house part. Then there's a little gate room to make, and a complete sort of guest cottage area at the back. Have I got the Wi-Fi turned on? I don't know why we're jumping around a lot, but the Wi-Fi is on. Oops, that's the wrong side. I don't want to destroy that little bit of moulding on the corner there, so I need to be very careful. It seems to be nice today. It's been rubbish this week, hasn't it? But it's nice and sunny today. So I've got some washing out, so fingers crossed it stays like that. But if it starts raining, it's because I've hung some washing out, so I apologise in advance. Oops. Just punched the camera. It was most hilarious seeing Rishi Sunak trying to address the nation, absolutely covered in, well, not covered in rain, being rained on. You know, it wouldn't have been beyond anyone to put an umbrella up, would it? Just seemed ridiculous standing outside in the pouring rain, but there you go. I'm much happier with this. This is starting to look really good. You never know, I might even be in position to give it a coat of sandstone colour tonight. This is a lot of fun, you know. I'm not being sarcastic, but it's fun starting to recreate the actual finish of the building in miniature. It really kind of brings it to life. Rather than being just a box with bits stuck on it. That's the thing I enjoy about model making, is, you know, recreating a little bit of realism. This bit's going to be difficult to get to without tilting it up, so I'll just stay up with these higher bits first. Oops, that's a bit loose there. Must avoid that and get a bit of glue under it while I can, or when I can. The other good thing about this is it's padded, and you can kind of bend it as you go, so it's quite a useful tool indeed. Now I'm using quite a lot of this. Just try and cut some more down. I just have to keep cutting bits off as I wear them out. Although you can see it's been fairly well used already. Unfortunately, I haven't been very economical in my use of these. I've used all three of them at similar points, and I've ended up with similarly worn pieces rather than one very worn piece and some new bits. Oops, I snapped the blade. It was inevitable that was going to happen. I can't push this any further back because of the height of my shelves. Using a smaller piece that I've just cut off to get to those smaller places. I'm going to have to come back into this tower here and carve the stone back in where it's just been obscured a little by the filler. Just a little bit more to do around this window now, and I'll move back to the front. I've got a bit of stone carving to do in this section, but I need to come back to that mark on where the stones are going to be. As you can see, we're generating quite a lot of dust and debris now. I'll have to get the the vac out. Not as easy to carve around these parts. As you can see, it's quite detailed and delicate. It's not as bad though. I have done a certain amount of sanding back already on these areas. I think I'm going to have to make a smaller sanding stick. Yeah, that's working quite well. And washing machine's finished. These sections were a lot of fun to make. Right, there's a lot more sanding to do. I thought I'd just come on for half an hour or so and show anybody that's on YouTube what I was up to. So I'm going to go away and do a lot more sanding, so hopefully I'll catch you all again soon. Thank you for taking an interest, and enjoy the rest of your Saturday.